My parents moved my alcoholic brother into my $2 million dream home. So I called the police and they arrested him immediately when they found his stolen credit cards, fake IDs, and the warrant for his arrest in 3 states. Before we begin, take a moment to subscribe, say hello below, and tell us where you're watching from. Your support truly means everything. Let's continue. I pulled into my driveway at 6:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, exhausted from a 14-hour shift at the hospital. I'm a trauma surgeon and that day had been particularly brutal. 3 car accidents, 2 gunshot wounds, and 1 case that still haunted me. All I wanted was to sink into my bathtub with a glass of wine and forget the blood. But there was a rusty pickup truck in my driveway. Not just parked, sprawled across it like it owned the place. My stomach dropped. I'd bought this house 6 months ago. $2 million. Every penny I'd saved for 12 years, plus the mortgage that would follow me into my 50s. It was mine. My sanctuary. Floor-to-ceiling windows, a kitchen island bigger than my first apartment, and a backyard where I'd planned to finally learn how to garden. The front door was unlocked. Hello. My voice echoed through the marble foyer. The alarm wasn't set. I always set the alarm. That's when I heard it, glass breaking followed by slurred laughter from my living room. My brother Frank sat on my white Italian leather sofa, feet propped on my coffee table, beer bottles scattered around him like casualties. His eyes were bloodshot, his beard unkempt. He looked like he'd aged 10 years since I'd last seen him at Christmas. Sis. He raised a bottle toward me. Welcome home. Mom gave me your spare key. Said you wouldn't mind me crashing here for a while. My hands started shaking. Frank, what are you? Just until I get back on my feet, he interrupted, words tumbling together. You got all this space. What's the big deal? The big deal was that I'd specifically told my parents this could never happen. If you've been following my journey, you know this isn't the first time my family has tried to sacrifice my peace for Frank's chaos. If you're new here, welcome, and I'm sorry you're about to witness what toxic family dynamics really look like. Please subscribe and hit that notification bell because this story gets worse before it gets better. Frank wasn't always like this. When we were kids, he was my protector. I was small for my age, got picked on constantly, and Frank, 3 years older, broad-shouldered even at 12, would appear like magic whenever I needed him. Nobody messes with my baby sister, he'd say, walking me home from school. But somewhere around his sophomore year of high school something shifted. He started drinking. Not at parties. Alone in his room, methodically erasing himself. By graduation he was disappearing for days at a time. I was 15 when I found him passed out in our garage, vomit crusted on his shirt, Mom crying over him while Dad made excuses. He's just going through something, Dad would say. He'll grow out of it. 20 years later, Frank hadn't grown out of anything. He'd lost 7 jobs, been evicted from 4 apartments, and wrecked 3 cars. Each time my parents cushioned his fall with their money and my guilt. He's your brother, Mom would say, her voice sharp with judgment. Family helps family. But I'd learned the hard way that helping Frank meant enabling him. So 3 years ago I stopped. No more money. No more rides. No more bailing him out. My parents called me selfish. Ungrateful for everything they'd sacrificed. I called it survival. Now he was here in my home because they'd given him access without asking. Frank, you need to leave. Now. I kept my voice steady the way I did when delivering bad news to families. Clinical. Detached. He laughed, that hollow bitter sound I'd grown to hate. Come on, Nia. Don't be like that. Mom said. I don't care what Mom said. This is my house. You don't have permission to be here. Permission. He lurched to his feet, swaying. We're family. I don't need permission. The entitlement in his voice ignited something in me. All those years of walking on eggshells, of being the successful one, who was supposed to fix everything, of carrying the weight of everyone else's dysfunction, it crystallized into rage. You absolutely do need permission. You need to pack whatever you brought and leave. Tonight. His face darkened. For a moment I saw the brother who'd protected me. Then it twisted into something ugly. You think you're better than me? With your fancy house and your doctor money? You forgot where you came from. I didn't forget anything. I said quietly. I remember every time you stole from Mom's purse. Every Christmas you ruined by showing up drunk. Every promise you broke. I remember all of it, Frank. The words hung between us like smoke. My phone buzzed. Mom calling. I ignored it. I'm giving you 1 hour, I continued. Then I'm calling the police. You wouldn't. But uncertainty flickered across his face. Try me. He stumbled toward the guest bathroom, muttering under his breath. I heard the door slam, then water running. My phone buzzed again. Dad this time. I answered. Nia, your mother is very upset. How did Frank get my spare key? Silence. Dad, I asked you a question. Your mother thought. No. Dad arrived 40 minutes later with Mom in tow. They didn't knock, just used their copy of my key, the one I'd given them for emergencies. The irony wasn't lost on me. Mom's face was already twisted in that martyred expression I knew too well. She'd been crying, mascara smudged beneath her eyes, clutching her purse like a shield. How could you? She started immediately. Your own brother, and you're throwing him out on the street? I'd been pacing my kitchen trying to calm down, but her words ignited everything again. How could you? I countered. You gave him access to my home without asking me. You violated my trust, my privacy, my boundaries. Boundaries. Mom spat the word like it was poison. That's all you talk about now. Boundaries, boundaries. What about family? What about love? This isn't about love, Mom. This is about respect. Something you've never shown me. Dad stepped forward, hands raised in his trademark peacemaker gesture. He'd always been the mediator, the soft voice trying to smooth over Mom's sharp edges. But I was done being smoothed over. Let's all calm down, he said. Nia, your brother is going through a rough patch. He lost his job 3 weeks ago, got evicted last Tuesday. He just needs a soft place to land while he figures things out. Then he can land at your place. You know we don't have room. You have 3 spare bedrooms. The silence was deafening. That's different, Mom finally said. We can't, his drinking, it's too much stress for us right now. Your father's blood pressure, my anxiety. So you dumped him on me? Without asking? Knowing I work 80-hour weeks? Knowing I explicitly said this couldn't happen? You have the space, Mom said simply, as if that justified everything. Listen to yourself. My voice cracked, years of suppressed frustration finally erupting. It's too stressful for you, but I'm supposed to handle it? I'm supposed to come home from saving lives to find my alcoholic brother passed out on my couch? Mom's eyes narrowed. Don't you dare talk about your brother like that. Dysicnia. Addiction is a disease. I know it's a disease. I'm a doctor. But that doesn't mean I have to set myself on fire to keep him warm. The phrase landed between us. Something I'd learned in therapy, words that had taken me 2 years to be able to speak out loud. Mom flinched like I'd slapped her. After everything we've done for you, she whispered, venom dripping from every syllable. We paid for your college. I paid for medical school myself. I've been financially independent since I was 22. You don't get to hold college over my head forever. We raised you, fed you, clothed you, loved you. Did you? The question escaped before I could stop it. Or did you just tolerate me while pouring everything into Frank? The golden child who could do no wrong. Dad's face crumpled. Nia, that's not fair. Fair? You want to talk about fair? I laughed, a harsh sound I barely recognized. When I graduated medical school, Mom cried because Frank wasn't there. At my residency celebration, you left early to pick him up from jail. I've spent my entire life competing with his dysfunction for scraps of your attention. That's a terrible thing to say, Mom breathed. It's the truth. Frank emerged from the bathroom, eyes red-rimmed. Are you seriously doing this right now? Making this about you? Something inside me snapped. Get out. All of you. Now. They left finally, but Frank stayed. He locked himself in my guest room and I heard furniture moving, barricading the door. My parents drove away in wounded silence, but not before Mom promised, "You'll regret this. Family is forever, Nia." I stood in my destroyed living room, beer bottles everywhere, A cigarette burn on my coffee table, muddy footprints on my cream carpet, and wanted to scream. Instead, I did what I always do when emotions threatened to overwhelm me. I cleaned. Methodically. Obsessively. Each bottle in the recycling was a small act of reclaiming my space. That's when I found the wallet. It had fallen between my couch cushions. Brown leather, worn at the edges, definitely not Frank's usual style. I opened it without thinking. The driver's license showed a man named Robert Jackson. Age 47. The credit cards had different names. Jessica Morrison, David Park, Amanda Foster. 7 cards total, none of them Frank's. My hands started shaking again, but this time not from anger. There were other things. A social security card that didn't match the license. A Best Buy gift card. Receipts for electronics purchased last week. Amounts that made my stomach drop. $3,000 at one store. $2,500 at another. I'd found my brother's wallet once before, years ago, when I did his laundry during one of his fresh start attempts at living with me in my studio apartment. It had been full of receipts then too, but I'd convinced myself they were legitimate. That he was finally getting his life together. I couldn't convince myself anymore. My phone sat on the counter, screen dark, full of missed calls from family. I stared at it, then at the wallet, then at the locked guest room door. 23 years of loyalty. Of covering. Of believing his excuses. I picked up my phone. Before calling the police, something made me check my home office. The door was slightly ajar. I always kept it closed and locked. My stomach knotted. My filing cabinet had been pried open, the lock broken. Files scattered across my desk. Tax returns, investment statements, passport, birth certificate. My laptop was gone from its drawer. So was my backup hard drive with 12 years of family photos. No. I ran to my bedroom. My jewelry box sat open, emptied. My grandmother's pearls, the ones she'd given me on her deathbed, whispering, "You're the strong one, baby girl," gone. My mother's original wedding ring, the one she'd given me instead of my brother because she trusted me to keep it safe, gone. Everything worth taking taken. I stood there, knees weak, hand pressed against my mouth to keep from screaming. The violation was complete. This wasn't just theft. This was betrayal wrapped in blood relation, justified by the word family. My phone buzzed. A text from Mom. "You need to apologize to your brother. He's crying. You've always been so cruel to him." The audacity made me laugh. A sharp, painful sound in the silence of my ransacked bedroom. I walked back downstairs, picked up the wallet again, and noticed something I'd missed before. A folded paper tucked behind the credit cards. A warrant. Frank's name, 3 different states. Charges ranging from identity theft to credit card fraud to failure to appear. My brother wasn't just an alcoholic struggling with life. He was a wanted criminal, and my parents had delivered him straight to my doorstep. I took photos of everything. The wallet contents spread across my kitchen island, the broken filing cabinet, the empty jewelry box. Evidence. Then I called 911. "I need to report a burglary," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "And I know who did it." The police arrived in 17 minutes. I counted every second. 2 officers. Officer Rodriguez, a woman about my age with kind eyes that had seen too much, and Officer Patterson, younger, with the careful demeanor of someone still learning the job. "Dr. Williams?" Rodriguez confirmed, reading from her notepad. "Yes. Thank you for coming." I led them inside, showed them the broken filing cabinet first, then the bedroom, then the wallet. Rodriguez's expression shifted as she examined the contents. "These aren't his cards?" "No. I don't know whose they are, but none of them are Frank Williams. That's my brother. He's locked in my guest room upstairs." Patterson exchanged a glance with Rodriguez. She pulled out her radio, called something in, codes I didn't understand but recognized as serious. "Ma'am," Rodriguez said carefully, "you mentioned a warrant?" I handed her the folded paper. She read it, her jaw tightening. "Mr. Williams is wanted in 3 states. This is a felony warrant." "I didn't know," I said, and my voice cracked despite my efforts to stay composed. "My parents brought him here without telling me. They gave him my spare key. I came home from work and he was just here. In my house. Drinking. And now half my valuables are gone. Have you confronted him about the theft? Patterson asked. No. I found the wallet after everyone left. I just called you immediately. Rodriguez nodded approvingly. That was the right call. We're going to need backup before we approach him. Can you tell me if he's armed? The question hit me like ice water. Armed? My brother. In my home. I don't know. I don't think so. But I don't know. 3 more patrol cars arrived within 5 minutes. My quiet, prestigious neighborhood, where people jogged with designer dogs and discussed property values over wine, lit up with red and blue lights. I watched from my porch, wrapped in a blanket Officer Rodriguez had given me as they surrounded my house. Frank Williams. Rodriguez's voice boomed through a megaphone. This is the police. We have a warrant for your arrest. Come out with your hands visible. Silence. My neighbors emerged from their houses, clustering in small groups, phones out, recording. Mrs. Moore from next door, who'd brought me cookies when I moved in, stared at me with something between concern and judgment. Frank Williams. You have 30 seconds to exit the residence. Still nothing. Then, I'm not going anywhere. This is my sister's house. I have permission to be here. Rodriguez glanced at me. I shook my head firmly. He does not have permission. Mr. Williams, your sister has reported a burglary and trespassing. We have a felony warrant for your arrest. This is your last warning. Fuck you. The words were muffled but clear enough. You can't just. I heard crashing from inside. More glass breaking. My heart hammered against my ribs. 2 officers moved to my back door while 4 approached the front. They had a battering ram. For my guest room door. In my house. Wait, I said to Rodriguez. Can I try talking to him? She considered, then handed me the megaphone but stepped close. Keep it brief. Don't promise him anything. I raised the megaphone with shaking hands. Frank, it's Nia. You need to come out. This isn't going to end well if you don't. You called the cops on me? Your own brother. You stole from me. Grandmother's pearls, Frank. Mom's ring. My laptop. My identity documents. What did you expect? I was going to pay you back. With stolen credit cards? Frank, they found warrants. From 3 states. This is bigger than us now. A long pause. Then, I'm scared, Nia. For just a moment I heard the brother who used to protect me. The boy before the bottles, before the lies, before everything broke. My chest tightened. I know, I said softly. But you have to face this. The door opened. Frank emerged with his hands up, eyes darting between the officers like a trapped animal. He looked smaller somehow, diminished by the porch lights and badges. Officer Patterson moved forward with handcuffs, and I watched my brother's face crumple. Nia, please, he called out as they cuffed him. Tell them it's a mistake. Tell them. Sir, you have the right to remain silent, Rodriguez began. Nia. Please. I stood frozen as they read him his rights, as they searched him and found 2 more wallets I hadn't seen, a baggie of pills and, horrifyingly, my spare checkbook from my bedroom drawer. These yours? Rodriguez held up the checks. Yes, I whispered. They loaded Frank into the patrol car. Through the window I saw his face, angry now, all traces of fear replaced by hatred. He mouthed something at me that I'm glad I couldn't hear. Rodriguez approached with a clipboard. We'll need a formal statement. Can you come to the station tonight, or would tomorrow morning be better? Tonight, I said. I won't sleep anyway. I understand. Her voice held genuine sympathy. For what it's worth, Dr. Williams, you did the right thing. I know it doesn't feel like it right now, but you did. My phone erupted with calls the moment the police cars left. My Aunt Gloria. My cousin Tamika. All of them, I imagined, ready to crucify me for what I'd done. I ignored them all and drove to the police station. The statement took 2 hours. Every detail, every timeline, every piece of evidence. They photographed the stolen goods list I'd compiled. When I mentioned my grandmother's pearls, my voice finally broke. Those were all I had left of her, I said, tears streaming down my face. She raised me more than my parents did. Those pearls. Rodriguez pushed a box of tissues across the table. We'll do our best to recover everything. But we both knew some things can't be recovered. I returned home at 2:37 a.m. to find my parents sitting on my porch steps. They'd been waiting for hours. How could you? Mom launched at me before I even got out of my car. Your own brother is in jail because of you. My own brother is a wanted felon who robbed me blind, I said flatly, exhaustion making my filter disappear entirely. Move. I want to go inside my house. Dad stepped forward. Nia, sweetheart, let's talk about this. I'm sure there's been some misunderstanding. There's no misunderstanding. Frank had 7 stolen credit cards, fake IDs, and warrants from 3 states. He stole my grandmother's pearls. He stole Mom's wedding ring, the one you gave me, Mom, saying I'd keep it safe. He cleaned me out. Mom's face went pale. The ring. Gone. Along with about $15,000 worth of jewelry, my laptop, my identity documents, and God knows what else I haven't found missing yet. Well, you probably provoked him somehow, Mom said, but her voice wavered. You've always been so rigid with him, so unforgiving. Stop. The word came out like a thunderclap. I'm done. I'm done being blamed for Frank's choices. I'm done being the villain in your story because I refuse to enable his destruction. I'm done sacrificing my peace for your comfort. If you're done with Frank, Mom said coldly, then you're done with us. The ultimatum hung in the humid night air. My father looked at the ground, saying nothing. Always saying nothing when it mattered. Is that really where we are? I asked quietly. After 35 years, after everything I've accomplished, after every time I've tried to help, this is your line in the sand? You put your brother in jail, Mom repeated. Frank put Frank in jail. I just stopped covering for him. Then we have nothing more to say to each other. They left. Drove away in their sedan, taillights disappearing into the darkness, and I stood in my driveway wondering how family becomes strangers in a single night. The next 3 weeks were a masterclass in grief. Not the clean, simple grief of death, but the complicated, messy grief of watching relationships die by choice. My phone became a weapon of psychological warfare. Texts from aunts I hadn't heard from in years, calling me heartless. Voicemails from cousins explaining why I was wrong, how family forgives, how I'd burn in hell for abandoning my brother. My uncle posted on social media, not naming me directly but making it clear who the cold-hearted sellout was, who'd forgotten where she came from. Through it all I went to work, saved lives, sutured wounds, held the hands of dying patients and promised their families I'd done everything possible. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd fight for hours to save a stranger's life but called the police on my own blood. Except it wasn't ironic. It was consistent. At work I had training, protocols, ethics boards. At work, enabling dysfunction would cost me my license. At work, boundaries weren't optional, they were survival. Why should family be different? My therapist, Dr. Morrison, a black woman in her 60s who'd survived her own family's dysfunction, sat across from me during an emergency session. Tell me what you're feeling, she said. Guilty, angry, relieved, terrified. Everything at once. That's normal. You just set a boundary your family has spent 35 years teaching you wasn't allowed. I keep thinking about when we were kids, I admitted. Frank protecting me from bullies, making me laugh. Before everything got so broken. You can mourn the brother he was while holding the man he became accountable, Dr. Morrison said gently. Those two things can coexist. My mother said I'll regret this. Will you? I thought about it. Really thought about it. I regret that it came to this. But no. I don't regret protecting myself. Then you have your answer. The district attorney's office called that afternoon. Frank was facing serious charges. They wanted to know if I'd testify. Yes, I said without hesitation. 6 months later I stood in my completely renovated home. New locks, commercial grade, the locksmith's finest. New carpet. New furniture. Fresh paint on every wall, colors I chose without asking anyone's opinion. I'd burned sage in every corner, had a pastor friend come bless the space, and then just for good measure hired an interior designer to make it feel completely mine. Frank took a plea deal. 3 years in a minimum security facility, restitution orders he'd never be able to pay, mandatory addiction treatment. My grandmother's pearls never turned up. Neither did Mom's ring. Some losses I'd learned were permanent. My parents and I hadn't spoken since that night on my porch. I'd sent them a letter once, carefully worded, explaining my position and leaving the door open for reconciliation when, if, they were ready to respect my boundaries. They never responded. It hurt less than I expected. Or maybe I'd just been hurting for so long that the absence of them felt like relief. I did get calls from other family members eventually. My cousin Tamika apologized tearfully, admitting Frank had stolen from her too. She'd just been too scared to say anything. My Aunt Gloria confessed she'd cut him off years ago but stayed silent to keep peace with my parents. One by one the truth emerged. I wasn't the only one he'd hurt. I was just the first one to stop hiding it. If you've made it this far in the story, thank you for witnessing my truth. If you're in a similar situation, trapped between loyalty and self-preservation, wondering if you're the problem, please hear me. You're allowed to save yourself. Family isn't a free pass to destruction. Love without respect isn't love at all. Hit subscribe if these stories resonate with you because you're not alone. I still drive by the hospital where I work and sometimes think about different choices. What if I'd let him stay? What if I'd tried harder? But then I come home to my sanctuary, quiet, safe mine, and I remember I did try. For years. And trying harder wouldn't have saved him. It would have just destroyed me too. The hardest truth I learned is this. You can't love someone sober. You can't boundary them into healing. You can't sacrifice yourself on the altar of family and call it virtue. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is stop participating in someone's destruction, even when that someone is blood. Especially when that someone is blood. My grandmother's voice echoes sometimes. You're the strong one, baby girl. I used to think strength meant enduring, absorbing, fixing. Now I know strength is knowing when to let go. I planted a garden last spring. Tomatoes, herbs, flowers that attract butterflies. Every morning before my shift I water them, watching things grow in the space I protected. The metaphor isn't subtle, but it's mine. I'm still estranged from my parents. Frank will be released in 2.5 years. I don't know what happens then. Maybe reconciliation. Maybe nothing. But I know this. I'll face it from a position of strength, not shame. From wholeness, not brokenness. From a home that belongs only to me with locks that only I control. And that's worth everything I lost to get here. The price of peace was family. But the family I lost had only ever cost me peace. In the end, the math wasn't complicated. It just hurt like hell. Some days I still cry for the brother who protected me from bullies. But I don't regret protecting myself from the man he became. That's not cruelty. That's survival. And I'm done apologizing for choosing to survive.